Good afternoon, good people. Good afternoon. How we doing? Welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I'm your host, Coach Renz, and welcome to the live. Today, we're going to have a conversation, hopefully. And we're talking about the subject matter, if we can stay on it, which we never do, but we're going to try to. And the conversation today is, there is no God, there is no devil. And I would look forward to anyone who thinks that they can prove that there is a God or that there is a devil. We have so much confusion concerning God and the devil. Yet, no one can prove either one of them existed. And based on the Bible, we know that neither one of them exists. We know that neither one of them exists. We can see the evolution of both the God of the Bible. We can see the evolution of the devil as well. And we can see the legendized evolution of this character called Jesus. So we're going to talk about those things today. Happy birthday. Is it your birthday, Brendan? If you're talking about something you've seen on Facebook, it was my wife's birthday was over the weekend. So it wasn't my birthday. But we're going to talk about that. First, I want to thank everybody who supports the channel. Those who support the channel through super chats, through memberships, through gifts, through fan club on TikTok. We're on TikTok over here, Facebook and YouTube over there. Tomorrow I have a meeting that I should be able to put everybody on one platform. But who supports the channel through stars and all other type of gifts. Without those gifts, some of the increases in the channel, the ability to do lives more often, it wouldn't be possible without you guys. So I appreciate you guys tremendously for your support and for sharing videos, liking videos, for becoming subscribers, followers, members. Thank you guys very much. I will be uploading 3 more videos later on today. So I generally load 3 videos a day, 3-day video about 6 to 5 days out the week. So today we're talking about there is no God, there is no devil. I put a few things up here on a few prompts to have this conversation. That the creation, false. Talking serpents, false. A flood, false. Satan, false. A war in heaven, false. Jesus, false. Rapture, false. Revelations, whole goddamn book, false. Revelation in itself is a failed prophecy already, because it was something that was supposed to happen in the late 1st century, early 2nd century. False. It never happened. So that's going to be our conversation today. And we're going to start this out with some stupidity. Hold on, Nubs. We're going to start this out with some stupidity. Bishop Nubs.
How you going to say stupidity?
That's what I expect.
That's just me.
It's the good kind. It's the good kind. It's the kind that make you say, ha, ha, he, he.
Okay. So yeah, I would agree. It's all bullshit. There's no actual evidence that they followed any of these Levitical laws until the 4th century. In fact, if you go into the temples and you start digging around, you'll see a nice little zodiac on the floor of the wait, what? A zodiac?
Mm-hmm.
Why would we have a zodiac and Roman coins with Zeus in the temple of the not so? Maybe those iron chariot wheels, maybe they came through first. Maybe that's what it is.
No, and you're right. I mean,
cancer and iron chariot wheels, 2 things you can't get around.
Explain more for those of us who don't know what you're talking about.
Well, there's a story about which. The zodiac or the iron chariot wheels?
What time frame?
The iron chariot wheels would be, I do believe that they were Persian chariot wheels. So I think that would be the Ninevites when Jonah didn't go.
Right. Well, we know the whole Jonah and the whale story is just a huge fabrication. And whether it's a whale or a fish, there is not
Well, let's be honest.
it's an impossibility for any person to live inside of a fish belly.
Not to mention 40 years after the event that God forgave without any consequence, mind you, no bloodshed needed,
Mm-hmm.
forgave an entire people group, and then they said, you know what, I'm good. 40 years later, we conquer you and bring you into the Babylonian. Yeah, no.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it interesting that this God used this, according to this book, this is supposed to be a loving God, but yet he uses fear and torment and slavery in order to force love from his people.
Yes.
So how is he a loving God if that's his process?
Just like Schmittler loved the German people.
Exactly. He loved the German people so much that he falsified information to cause them to scapegoat another group of people, well, multiple groups of people, so that they can go around killing them and feeling okay with it.
Yep.
And you know, one of the interesting things about that, when I was stationed in Germany, is to meet some of the World War II veterans, and they were completely ashamed that they allowed themselves to fall for that whole stupidity. But like most sheeple, you go with the dominant thought process. And it has been, at least the last 12,000 years of known history, man has had to worship something.
Yep.
And
it's all based off of fear of the unknown and fear of something that's inevitable anyways. Like, we're all going to die. Why do we got to go? Like, I was talking to a Christian the other day, and he's like, well, aren't you afraid to die as an atheist? I'm like, no. After 50, 60, 70 years, I'm good. Like, I don't need any, like, you selfish bastard.
Right.
Now you're going to tell me you're going to live eternally. Like, wow.
And you're living eternally without and obviously without any kind of free will. Because how can a person be in a heaven and have no sorrow, no hurt, no pain, no tears, yet you know that there are billions of people who are suffering in a lake of fire? You have to strip your empathy away. Empathy and sympathy have to be stripped. So you're not yourself then.
Right.
I only talk to one person at a time. After, I can't see what it said, Albert. Yeah. So you only, there's no way you want to go up into a heaven where you're not even yourself anymore, because you cannot remember your family members who are suffering and yet be up there and be happy. How is that possible?
I'm definitely not scared of your late-stage Jesus. The Romans already took care of him. If he existed, they put him on a cross and called him a donkey.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as anything else, your Jesus himself was so holy and so sanctified that he got the Bacchic tradition. I won't go into it for TOS, because I don't want to get my friend's channel shut down because of what your Jesus had done to him. Ew, gross. Just look up what is it called? An alabaster? Now, I've never seen any alabasters that were shaped like a box, but they always go into a box, you dirty man.
You're so stupid. Stop talking about them penis boxes. But
yeah, those magic penis boxes that they vigorously rub the front side.
I'm not with you. Anyway.
Hey, it is what it is. I'll believe that Jesus gives blowjobs. You believe whatever you want. Or, well, yeah, I guess the child.
Jesus never, Jesus never existed. So even the story with him being in the garden with a butt-naked boy is all just a fabricated story.
And that's what makes it so much worse. Like, you could have fabricated it without molesting children.
But that was a sign of their times. It was common for, especially in the Hellenized Greek versions of, since there was a Hellenized area.
Yep. All the champions had little boys.
Young boys were for fun. That was a common trope.
Yep.
We see that in our world today as being disgusting. But there are many things.
Even that, we see, you and I see it that way, but there is a large group. Well, I wouldn't say large. There is a large enough. We'll put it that way. Large enough group of people that still adhere to that disgusting, like, and it's still from the same traditions.
Yeah, and they do. And it's one of those things that we may never ever 100% get rid of. You're always going to have some people thinking that they're going to go against the general morality of the people, and that will be one of those things that there will always be somebody going against that general morality. So we won't get rid of it, but their idea of heaven is when they do, that's when all those things will be gone, right? But if there was free will in heaven, there can't be free will in heaven, because if there wasn't, then this fake story of the devil's rebellion couldn't happen unless they had free will. So what would be to stop that from happening a second time could only be if you take away the free will of the people who supposedly make it into heaven. Yep.
And it says that you don't have free will because it says what you're going to do. It says that you're going to sing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God." I can't even finish it. Yeah.
Yep, 24/7.
Yeah.
all day and out for all eternity. That is not free will. Yeah. That is not my idea of heaven. I would
rather, you know what? I can't even go there. I would rather fuck a moose. You need a ladder, but I would rather fuck a moose.
All right. Well, I got some more people waiting, so let me try to be. All
right. For anybody that disagrees with me, F off. And for anybody that agrees with me, much love.
Later, Bishop Nubs.
Drop it down if you would.
So to the guy, Albert, this is a typical religious person's perspective. He posted on in TikTok that I'm scared to bring him up. After I said that I only bring up one person at a time. And I try to keep everybody in order. Like, since Albert left, now Sammy is going to be next, and then I'm going to go to YouTube, Facebook with Jennifer. So if you can't be patient, then that's your own fault. If you feel like I'm supposed to let you up, but to utilize a tactic of fear, oh, you must be scared of me, that's why you won't let me up. That is the trademark of your God, and the belief in your Bible is you want to try to scare someone into getting your way and getting your will. That is very, very religious like of you. And we're going to bring Jennifer up since Sammy dropped. Jennifer.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
Doing quite well. Your top of your head looks fantastic.
Well, thank you.
What do you have for us today, Miss Jennifer?
No, I was my son, he's in the Hebrew Israelites.
Okay.
And we get into it a lot about it because I try to tell him, how can we trace our lineage back to them? That's impossible. And also, I try to explain to him, Islam is one of the ain't it one of the youngest religions out there?
Yeah, it's the youngest. It's definitely the youngest religion of the Abrahamic religions, but it's also, like you said, one of the youngest of the more popular religions that are out in the world today. I mean, Hinduism, Shinto, Buddhism, Jain, all those religions are older than Islam. I'm not like have a ton of knowledge on Islam, but supposedly, Muhammad was the final messenger, was the comforter that Jesus was talking about he was going to send, even though the Bible says that the comforter is the Holy Spirit. But they took up that claim and then created Islam out of it by utilizing the Old Testament. Instead of going down Isaac's line, they went down Ishmael's line and fabricated a whole storyline based on Ishmael as well. Like, we have no idea. If you're reading any of the Old Testament stuff, you have no idea about the sons of Ishmael and who they became and so on and so forth. It is all fabrication by the Arab community in the 500s and 600s.
Correct. Right.
But it is young.
Very right. And that's what I try to explain to my son. And it gets, I don't know, a little frustrating at times, because I don't want to, I'm proud of him for, you know, standing up and trying to be a strong black man,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't like him going down the, you know,
Is he Islamic or is he Hebrew Israelite?
he's Hebrew Israelite, but they go from all these other books, they read from all these books, it's not just one book they read from.
Yeah, so what they do is they read also these books that were not part of the Jewish canon nor the biblical canon. So like the book of Tobit, the book of Jasher, the book of Jubilees. They read a lot of them. I can't say all of them, but a lot of them, they add those books to their storyline. But their main thing is they believe that the transatlantic slave trade is the prophecy of Deuteronomy 28, I believe, where
Yeah.
it says that for 400 years, you'll be enslaved for 400 years and your children will be sailed away on ships and there will be no buyers. Well,
Right.
the 400 years is up for one. We weren't enslaved in America for 400 years. That's the other part. The first African slaves didn't come to the United States till 1619. So 2019 would have been 400 years. There's no proof of lineage from the Israelites, and there were plenty of buyers. Without buyers, no one would have been able to purchase. No one would have been without buyers. Yeah, without buyers, then the slave trade could not have happened. So you had to have people who were buying the slaves. And the fact of the matter is, they'll try to say that, well, to be redeemed means that you won't be redeemed to God. Is how they try to spin that one. But the language there is clearly buyers. And the language also says it has the definite article of saying that you will sell away to Egypt. And the definite article before Mizraim means the land of Egypt. So they try to say that America is Egypt because Egypt represents bondage. But only if you're coming from an Exodus storyline does Egypt represent bondage.
Right.
But the main thing that they do, and I'm not trying to dig too deep into your business, is that they try to find young men who are looking for good father figures. Kind of like how the church seek out people who are destitute, who are emotionally struggling.
Yeah.
They seek out young men who are emotionally struggling and looking for some type of fatherhood figure. And then they pile in this religious concept to make them feel better about themselves. I mean, it's the oldest cult trick in the book.
Yes. I agree. And
So
I'm not ashamed. My son's father was in and out of jail, and was not very present in my son's life. And I did my best to try to forge a relationship. He's angry with me about that. Now, he feels like I should not have done that. But I thought that was the mature thing to do.
what, you having a relationship with another man? Or
No,
your relationship
no,
with,
no, having my son and his father to have a relationship.
oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. But the father wasn't doing his part of the work.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that sounds textbook. Most guys that I've met who became part of the Israelite movement, that's the textbook thing. They were looking for some type of good father figure that they can follow. And they see these men who are organized and they seem very masculine and like they got their stuff together and there's unity in it. I mean, it's the same process that young men fall into gangs, and
Mhm.
it's a hard road to get him away from that because of the emotional attachment that he would have to these men.
Right.
Generally, it's either he has to study his way out, or he sees these men acting in a way that is opposing to what he thought he was getting into.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to let him learn on his own, you know.
Well, yeah, but you know, the things about the Old Testament that you can show him is a bunch of BS, because that in itself, like they try to they harp on that Deuteronomy 28, right? And they harp on the 12 tribes. But if you go through it, there's contradiction in the 12 tribes as to who are the 12 tribes. There's one part that adds a different person. There's the fact that the flood never happened. The Exodus story never happened. There were never slaves in Egypt. So therefore, Egypt doesn't represent bondage, since there were never slaves in Egypt. There were no Hebrew slaves there. You know, Abraham didn't exist. Moses didn't exist. You don't get the first person in the Old Testament that we can prove existed until you get to Hezekiah. And that puts him at around 700, in the mid 700s. So education through realizing that the Old Testament is a bunch of BS is a way to open someone's eyes who's caught up into the Hebrew Israelite movement. Other than that,
I try to explain them. If you read if you read the Bible in general, you can tell that it was written by different people just by reading it. Because you know, just going through the different books, none of it relates, you know, to like the same person.
Yeah, it's definitely written by a multitude of people over a long period of time. They will then say that it was inspired by God for those people to write it. But if it was inspired by God, then there should not be contradictions. When you just look at something as simple as how Saul died, you know, in one instance, one person killed Saul, in another instance, a different person killed Saul. So, you know, those types of contradictions, if it was inspired by God, there should not be those types of contradictions within it. So you can go from small contradictions to major contradictions, like the flood. You know, we know the flood never happened. That's
right.
Scientifically, we know it never happened. I don't know if you can tell him that, because the Hebrew Israelites are very male dominated and disrespectful towards women.
Yeah.
So a woman's word is not worth anything. You know, they're taught based on the Old Testament that a woman can't even make a promise. And if that promise is taken away by the father or the oldest male or the husband within 3 days, then the promise can be invalidated. A woman really can't bear witness to anything. It has to be seconded by a man. So they don't look at women as equals.
No, they don't.
It'll be hard for you to dissuade him. The best thing is, honestly, another man. And then he's angry with you. So that's going to make it even more difficult.
Yeah.
But another man is probably the best case scenario to dissuade him from the nonsense of Hebrew Israelites.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
And I love your content. Keep it up. I appreciate everything.
I certainly will.
And I'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye. Yeah, that's a hard. What you have to deal with. I feel, you know, a lot of these young men are easily trapped into these societies. But we as other men have to do continue to do the work and do the job of putting ourselves out there, making ourselves available for these young men. So Young Disciple was on TikTok. Now he's gone. Let's see. Is there any comments that has to do with the subject matter on here? I'm going to start sticking to the subject matter. So we start getting into a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm not doing it. When Jesus come back. So this comment by Sandy. When Jesus come back, you will see paradise and you will rot in hell. Change your ways and Jesus will be with you and you're going to be in paradise forever. Let me promise you great things and tell you about the punishment to get you in fear. You need to be fearful of the life that you're leading. Well, Sandy, what about the fact that since you don't worship Allah, then you're going to go to Muslim hell? You see, Pascal's wager doesn't work. It only works if you're talking to somebody who doesn't believe in any God. But even in that one, it still doesn't work because there are people who believe in other gods. If there was only the God of Christianity being taught around the world, and that was the only religion, and then there was atheists, then your argument may work on people. But since we know that people have believed in different gods over thousands, tens of thousands of years, and your God is a new God, relatively new God, young God, then why would your strategy of fear-based doesn't work, especially when there is literally zero true archaeological evidence that the Jesus character ever existed. So therefore, the whole Revelation, second coming, all that kind of stuff, it's just made up gibberish, right? Because you can't even prove that Jesus actually existed. You cannot prove that he walked on water. You can't prove that he healed the blind man, the young boy, the man with schizophrenia. He healed the woman with an issue of blood. He healed the Canaanite woman's daughter, the centurion's kid. You can't prove any of those things. You can't prove a resurrection. You can't prove nothing about Jesus. Only thing you can prove about Jesus is that people believed that a Jesus existed. That's it. Beyond that, there's absolutely no proof of Jesus. So therefore, there's no reason to believe that there's going to be this coming back and that there's going to be this paradise. And what is this paradise? Being in heaven? Praising this God all the time, not having any concerns about the people who are in this lake of fire for all eternity, yet you're running around happy. That makes no sense. I think a person is psychotic if you live a life and never have any concerns for people who are suffering, right? Never have any concerns for people who are suffering. How could you live that life? Like, I can't even live my life and not have concern for people who suffer. So how in the hell am I going to do it for all eternity? That makes no sense. You can't prove that money exists yet. Exists, but you still use it. That is apples and oranges, first of all. Money exists because we all agree to utilize it as a method of exchange. So therefore, money does exist. Money first started existing in a bartering system, and then after a bartering system and coinage, but those coins used to have actual gold or silver. They were precious metals. But then we went away from that to the IOU note. So money does exist. You can go to the bank and pull some money out. Money exists. If you don't believe money exists, if you don't think money exists, live your life without it. Go ahead. Try it. This is one of those, and I'm not trying to be rude, but that's one of them dumbass comments. Money exists, but money doesn't exist, and you can't prove it, but you still use it. Because it exists. And not only exists as a method that we all agree upon, but we have literal tender paper. And yes, we are moving to more digital currency, but I'm done with that one. Oh, that's stupid. Can someone explain why Hebrew Israelites teach from the Christian Bible? See, because Hebrew Israelites started in America. That's the simplest version. They started in America, so they had to use something that was common to Black Americans in order to convert people over. If you wanted to start a new religion, the best thing to do is to utilize an old religion and revamp it. So this is what the whole Jesus narrative is: taking an old religion, to Judaism, revamping it into Christianity. And the Hebrew Israelites have merely just taken Judaism and some parts of Christianity and revamped it. It depends on what Hebrew Israelites you're talking about. There are some Hebrew Israelites who talk about Jesus, and there are other Hebrew Israelites who don't accept Jesus. So you got different versions of Hebrew Israelites. But at the end of the day, they are merely just utilizing something that was already present. The Mormons did the same thing. Jehovah's Witness, everybody, every new religion or new variation of a religion is generally based on an older religion. So they're going to use it, and then they try to blacken it. Oh, King James was black, you know, and they try to make it seem like it's a black thing and it's for black people, so that people will feel more comfortable with it, because they know that black people in America would have never become Christian if it wasn't for colonization of Africa and the transatlantic slave trade. So they got to soften that blow. Let's see. This is why I can't wait to have my meeting tomorrow, so that all the comments will be on one platform. This is something I've never heard of. Do you know anything about indexing and birth certificates that Jesus' father Joseph and Mary were doing for him and Jesus' son James? I don't. But if somebody else knows anything about that, that's something when I see something I don't know, I would love to find out. But to my understanding, they didn't have birth certificates back then. I was told that his real name was Yahuwah Mishiach Henderson. Okay. He's stupid. Okay. I'm not messing with y'all. Not messing with y'all at all. Oh man. And this is a good one, Shamika. No archaeological evidence is why you're told no man knows the day or the hour. It absolves them from proving he existed. It's the best tactic. If you're going to make a prophecy, the best scenario is to be as vague as you possibly can. You want to be specific, but vague. Specific of an event, but vague as to when it's going to happen. That way you can keep running that shit up the flagpole over and over and over again. Right? On TikTok, somebody said, I can't see the name, who has bewitched you? Studying the Bible. I studied it for my damn self. Just studied it for myself. No one bewitched me. I studied it. And why don't you come on here and prove that Jesus walked on this earth? Thank you for the, what are those? Thank you for whatever that is, Miss Fifi. Oh, fingers. Thank you for the fingers. And thank you for the hearts. Joining the fan club. Alan. Yeah, I just read the first part of what Ernest wrote. But I'll read it. I appreciate your videos. I share them on my Facebook page consistently. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate the shares and all the gifts that people give. My family has shunned me for me no longer believing in a conscious living God that hears and answers prayers, knowing what I know, I will never go back to believing anyone's God, even if one of these religious people, God would appear to me, even all the horrifying atrocities that happens to humans since the dawn of human. And apparently these people's God didn't intervene to save humans from harm. These people, okay, he wrote something else too. These people gods. Yeah, unfortunately, I feel for people whose family has shunned them. I didn't experience that. But I mean, there were some conversations here and there, but I didn't experience that. But I know so many people have. And it's pretty sad when people will stop looking at all the other attributes that they love about you and then disengage from you simply because you don't believe in the same belief they have, especially when their belief teaches that they can't save anybody. Right? You know, I remember being in a marriage counseling session when I was a Christian, and I brought to the fact that, you know, the fact that I don't believe in this God and she does. Doesn't the Bible say that her belief I will be saved and my belief she will be saved? So what does it matter? Right? But then they'll turn around and say that everybody has to be saved on their own and everybody has to believe on their own, you know, which to me sounds like contradictions. Now, some people say that Paul was saying that, and that was just for the people at that time frame because Christianity was new. But if the Bible is for all times, then that should stand for all times. But the fact that people will shun each other over a belief that that they can't prove, and especially family members, that's just a sad occurrence. And that's why I always say family is not blood. Family is the relationships that you build with other people. Because I got friends who are just as much family with me, to me. What does the prompt say? That Jesus is false. If you're talking about Jesus, prove Jesus. Come on here and prove Jesus. What is your proof of Jesus? You know, it is good that they say that faith is without facts, right? Because when you have faith, you don't have to have facts. You can just believe something, say something, and accept it, and you don't ever have to prove it. And that comes from your indoctrination. All these things that are in the prompts comes from your indoctrinations. You know, the devil actually exists, comes from the indoctrination. The devil wasn't even a being in Judaism until around the 4th century BCE. Judaism didn't have a devil. And it took from 4th century to about 1st century BCE for them to solidify a devil. And they learned it from the Persians when they were under their teaching, when they were under their domination, and they learned about Zoroastrianism, right? So they didn't even have a devil. Moses didn't have a devil. Abraham, no devil. Balaam didn't have a devil. He had an adversary, but the adversary was an angel of God. He was in the employment of God. This God of the Bible says, hey, who's going to go down and be Balaam's adversary? And one angel stood up and said, I'll do it. And he went down to become his adversary, doing God's will. It's not until they learn about Zoroastrianism that they develop the sense of a devil. And then by the time you get Jesus, you know, in the 1st century, the teachings, by the time you get Christianity in the 1st century, you get the development of a devil. And it still took Christianity until around the 3rd century to truly develop the idea of a devil. So the devil didn't even exist in Christianity until the 3rd century CE. But it's been around for so long, people are just accepting it now. Where do I find, from Zaza Zaire, where do I find the exact truth? I was told about the Holy Ethiopian Bible, the Holy Quran, and the Dead Sea Scroll. Well, none of them are the exact truth, right? And there really is it's kind of hard. There's no such thing as the exact truth in most things that are philosophical. If we're talking about facts, there are some exact truths on that. So the Ethiopian Bible is not holy. None of these books are holy. They're all written by men, right? And the Ethiopian Bible was brought to the kingdom of Aksum by a Syrian Orthodox Christian named Fermentus, who was under the leadership of Athanasius, who was the bishop of Alexandria, Egypt. And he brought them the Bible and converted King Azana. King Azana only converted to Christianity because he wanted to have better trade relationships with Rome. And it still took about 200 years for Ethiopia to truly become dominated by Christianity. Most of the people still were worshiping their gods, right? And the Quran it was developed in the 500s when Muhammad claimed that the angel Gabriel came and told me these things, and then he told the scribes, and the scribes wrote it down, right? Who witnessed Muhammad talking to Gabriel? How do you know? You're just taking this man's word. The same way that they take Joseph Smith's word that he found some golden plates. They're just taking some dude's word and then they follow it and believe that it's true. And most of the time, these religions grow through violence. Islam did not grow through peace. It grew through violence. Just like most of these religions grow violently. Oh, let me see. Zaza says, I'm Muslim, but I was scammed by temples, churches, and mosques. I honestly don't have anyone that I can trust. I'm embarrassed as it is. I'm embarrassed as it is literally I literally stopped believing in Jesus in 2017. However, it's been difficult to even just depend on anyone since I don't have a family. I don't have family nor friends to depend on, be quite honest. Like I was saying, everybody, family is relationships. Brandon is my brother. Troy is my brother. We have no family, no bloodline attached to us. Those are my brothers. I can trust them with my children, with my wife, with my money, with any and everything. I'm there for them. They're there for me. We develop this relationship. Brandon is Christian. Troy, he one of them laissez-faire Christians. But they accept me for who I am. I accept them for who they are. And that's what makes us family. And we trust and love each other. That makes us family. Now, I fortunately have family members that I am close to, and we are family. But if you don't have family, you can find family. You can find family. Now, trusting these religious people, most of the time they're trying to get your obedience and your money. That's what they want out of you. Your obedience and their money by telling you these ancient fables to try to make you believe in some deity that they claim exists, but yet have no evidence of it other than some manuscripts. You know, in archaeology, manuscripts are the least acceptable type of proof of any existence of anything. Because if we only went by manuscripts, then you would have to say that Zeus exists, that the Zeus fought against the Titans, and his father belched out all his other brothers and sisters that he supposedly ate. And you would have to accept that Zeus exists. You would have to accept that Oshun and Olorun, that they exist, that Brahma, Lamishka, that all of them exist. So in the world of proof, you got to have more than just documentation. That's why none of these things, there's not one thing up here that has any documentation, that has any proof beyond documentation, I should say. Nothing. Not one thing. And Revelation supposedly hasn't even happened yet. But when you dig deep into Revelations, what you realize is that John was talking about what's supposed to have happened in around the first century. The expectation was that Jesus was going to return in the first century, and that all this stuff that in Revelation was supposed to happen in the first, maybe early second century at the latest. But none of it happened. The beast was Nero. Nero was the beast. The 666 in Gematria spells out the name of Nero. And that's why in the Vulgate, it is 616 is the number of the beast, because it spells out the name Nero in Latin. So there's no beast. The beast was a man, a former emperor who they thought would come back with an army, I think from the I forgot what army it was. They thought he may come back from. I think it's the Scythians or Scythians, but no. Good old Rupert, my man. Rupert said that history has proven that Jesus don't exist. True. But God definitely do exist, and no one can prove he doesn't. You got to prove that he does. You see, the great claim is that God exists. You have to then demonstrate that your God exists. So your God, your good, loving God, supposedly we can see how the earth was created, how the earth developed. But your God is taking the claim, but your book states the claim that your God did this thing in 6 days, 6,000 years ago. But we can see that the earth is way older, and we can tell how the earth developed. So that disproves the whole creation story of your God. So your God don't exist. Because your God is based on, and everything, I always say, if the root of the tree is dead, and the whole damn tree is dead, just like my beloved grapefruit tree for my house in Florida. When the carpenter ants ate up the root, the tree died. The root is Genesis. And since the creation story is a fabrication, then your God is a fabrication. Okay, something. I need somebody on Facebook or YouTube to type in a comment, because I should see more comments. I don't know why I don't see any comments. And the comments are all faded. Well, not all of them. The ones I've clicked on are faded. But none of these, there is nothing. I did a video earlier today. It hasn't been published on YouTube and Facebook yet. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, honey. It's my wife. She's always on it. What did I do a video on? Oh, War in Heaven. I want to know how many people think or have been told that a war in heaven happened before the creation of the earth. Put a 1 in the comments if the war in heaven happened before the creation of the earth. That when it was just God and the angels, a war in heaven happened. If you think that happened, or you've heard that happened, put a 1 in the comment. No, let me rephrase that. If you think that actually happened, put a 1 in the comment. If you just only heard it, but you may not necessarily believe it, put a 2 in the comments. Because if you believe a war in heaven happened before, where do you get it from? Most people don't even realize where they get that story from, where that story developed from, rather. Most people get the story of a war in heaven from a pastor or imam or a rabbi or a priest, is where most people get the story from. And most people heard that story. I heard that story my entire childhood, growing up, my young adulthood, thought it was real and everything. And then one day I decided I was going to go through the Bible and I want to find this war in heaven. So, of course, if it happened before the earth was created, then I should find it in the Old Testament, since since it was taught in Judaism. But as I perused through Judaism, there was no war in heaven. It never happened. Now, Big Z said Revelations. Revelations 12 is not talking about a war in heaven that precedes the creation of the earth, but a war in heaven that has happened after Jesus has come back. After at least the 7 seals have been opened is when a war in heaven happens. When the great dragon tail sweeps out a third of the stars, that's when it happens. Trifo said Paradise Lost. That's valid. That's valid. Paradise Lost. But it starts in the Judaic format in and around the 3rd, 2nd century. The book of Enoch was written. And when in Enoch 1, it talks about a war in heaven that preceded the creation of the earth. Enoch was written if you use other ways that they canonize things and say that things are more valid and not valid, Enoch was written super late. If you exclude the Gospel of Thomas, if you exclude the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Shepherd of Hermas, First and Second Clement, because they were written late, then you have to exclude Enoch. Enoch was written super late. And it wasn't written by Enoch. According to the story, Enoch had long been in heaven, walking with God. But he claims that he saw this war in the heavens. So there is no war in heaven in any of the canonized Bibles that does not have the book of Enoch. The two Bibles that do have Enoch, they're going to have it. Now, when they point to Revelations 12, it talks about a mother who's having a child, and the great dragon wanted to take this child and devour it, but then the child goes up into heaven so it can be nourished for 1,260 days. The dragon sweeps down a third of the angels, which means to drag down a third of the angels. This could be through influence, but he fights a war, a battle against Michael. Michael defeats him, and the dragon is cast down to earth. Then the dragon pursues the woman who has went into the wilderness, but then God gives her wings like eagles and she flies away. And the dragon is so pissed off that he tries to create this flood. Well, he creates the flood and she flies away from the flood, but the earth swallows the flood. And then he's pissed. And then if you read verse 19, I believe, of Revelations 12, it specifically says, then the dragon goes to make war against the people who have been keeping God's commandments and the testimony of Jesus. So all those events cannot happen unless there are people who are keeping the testimony of Jesus. But Jesus has to have come beforehand. So it's not at the beginning of creation or preceding creation. It has to be happening in the future. So Revelations 12 is not talking about a war in heaven where the devil supposedly fell from grace. So the war in heaven is a made-up doctrine by the church to try to explain why there is a serpent in the garden, why there is influences that are negative to whatever the common agreement of morality is at the time frame, and to describe some great battle for Jesus to have. And in this case, it's not even Jesus having the battle, it's Michael having the battle against the great dragon. Jesus' battle is against the Antichrist, according to the Revelations. And that Antichrist is Nero. So that part. So there is no war in heaven. War in heaven is just a made-up doctrine, trying to answer questions that people had problems in the Bible with. You know, this don't make sense, that don't make sense. And even some of the earlier church fathers had issues with them, with those types of statements, whether it was Jerome or Augustine or Irenaeus. They had problems with those things. So people have taken these books, these so-called holy books, and they have made it fit whatever their current morality is, their current culture. And we still continue to see them doing that today. Christians in first century, early second century thought the world was ending at their time. This is why Paul told people, don't even bother with getting married, right? Don't even bother with it. You know, because Jesus is coming before this generation dies, because that's what the Gospels record Jesus saying. But then he doesn't come back. So he lied. Jesus lied. But as time goes on, people kept on predicting. We get Jehovah's Witness from a failed prediction of the end times. We get Seventh-day Adventists from a failed prediction of end times. You know, you get all these different, and then you got so many people who are always predicting. And we just saw, what was it? Igbo Noah and his failed predictions. You had the other guy who had all them people out in the middle of the field. I forgot his name, with his failed predictions. These failed predictions happen constantly. The Branch Davidians up in Waco, Texas, Jim Jones, the was it Falls Gate. People are constantly making up these failed predictions. Why would a war in heaven? Why would a war even happen in heaven? That's a good statement. Why would a war in heaven actually happen? It wouldn't. If you think that if everybody's in heaven, why would there be a war? Everything's nice. It shouldn't be a war. But what a Christian would say is because the angels had free will and the devil wanted to put himself above God, as it says in Isaiah and Ezekiel. But Isaiah and Ezekiel were talking about the king of Tyre and the king of Babylon. They were not talking about some ethereal being. So, but they had free will. So then the question then should be, Jumanji, if people are going to go to this heaven after Jesus supposedly returned, in order for there not to be another war in heaven, then those people cannot have free will. I love these little comments. Oh my gosh, my friend, you are a liar. All anyone needs to do is read the word of God. It won't take long for anyone to see how you are lying and trying to mislead. You are doing the work of Satan. First of all, prove anything that I said is a lie. You can't. Second thing, the reason that most of us have walked away from this Bible is because we read this so-called word of God. And this book is not the word of God. Thank you for joining the fan club. Thank you. And yes, it wouldn't take long for a person who read it critically to realize that the Bible is full of lies and contradictions, inaccurate historical events, and so on and so forth. And as far as doing the work of Satan, yes, I am the adversary to religious indoctrination, because that's all Satan means, is adversary. It has nothing to do with a being. Because then you got to explain Job, and you got to explain Balaam, and you got to explain that David was an adversary. Is God in heaven or outside of heaven? Well, God don't exist. That's the first part. But according to the Bible, this God is in heaven, because when you come up to this great white throne and you'll just worship him all day and he's supposed to be the light, then you're worshiping this God. So he has to be in heaven in order for this light to be. Yet they will say he's also outside of time and space and all that kind of stuff. So he would be both if he existed. The only good part about it is that he doesn't exist. Oh, I like this guy. You walked away because your unwillingness to accept the convictions you felt. You were looking for a feel-good religion. Join Islam. You're a funny guy, Elrod Jenkins. I love how Elrod Jenkins automatically just knows exactly who I am and knows my journey and can just break me down in such ways that he understands me completely. Right? That are looking for a feel-good religion. It's not even worth conversating with that stupid ass comment. No, I walked away from this religion because I studied this religion. I studied it more than just going into a church and believing whatever some pastor tell you. And please do not pray for me. I do not want your witchcraft being a part of my existence. You keep your witchcraft prayers to yourself. I think people walk away from the Bible because they don't understand it. They are mixing it with religion instead of just reading it for how it is written. No, it's better for you to, in order for, you're wrong about that one, Rupert. I'm explaining why in this psychology. People are walking away from the religion today because they are reading the Bible and understanding what is written, which is converse to the doctrines that's been preached in the church. If you go to a church, there's so many parts of the Bible that they skip, so many parts of the Bible they will never talk about. They don't talk about Judges 19. They don't dig deep into the fact of the Sodom and Gomorrah story. They tell you things to make you feel guilty about your sin, which is anything that is against this God, but they are telling you things in the Bible that only fits with your moralities of today. That's how people stay in the church, by being taught what feels good in your morality today. But when people actually pick it up and read it without blinders on, like I'm gonna say you have, because you have the blinder of blackness on, you come away with it with these with these misunderstandings, this illogical stances that you take all the time. You know, it's kind of like how you're using the word, I overstand this. I remember when overstanding became popularized, and I was like, that's stupid. I overstand. First time I heard that, KRS-One said it, and I was like, he sounds stupid. Smart guy in a lot of things, but in that instance, I was like, he sounds stupid. I overstand. My man Jumanji. Jumanji, you there?
What's going on, man?
How you doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah, you know, a lot of people who actually read the Bible, they haven't picked it up like on their own. Like, you know, say this person never heard about Jesus or anything, they never picked it up. Normally, people read it based off what they've been told. You know, if you have to look up what, you know, when Satan in the Old Testament, he was never really, what do you say, an enemy of God. I never read him as an enemy of God. He was always the accuser of man. You know what I'm saying? I seen him working for God. Even the book of Job, he was never presented as an enemy. It's like he went up there it's like they had a position, right?
Yep.
And, you know, when it came time to take their station, his position was to accuse man. So that's what he went to the earth doing.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until Jesus came. And if you look at what they expect him to do, Jesus failed the mission. He's supposed to, you know, come and rescue the Israelites. But since he didn't do that, they switched it to sin and you know, death. You know what I mean? That they say that's what they switched it to.
Right.
It seemed like they switched Jesus' role as to, he didn't come down to really rescue people from, you know, the government at that time oppression. He came down to rescue us from sin and death. But that's not, you know, the Messiah. Jews didn't look for a Messiah to rescue them from sin and death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah.
And
also, I just want to point out one more thing too. Also, like if you read, I think it was 2 Chronicles, right? When David took that census.
Yeah.
It's funny in I think 1 Chronicles 21. It said Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to number Israel. Now, if you look at the parallel account in 2 Samuel, it says, "In the anger of God blazed against Israel and incited David to go make a count." So it's like 2 parallel accounts. One say God did it, and one say Satan did it. You know?
Exactly. And those types of contradictions are, especially Chronicles and the books of Samuel, have quite a few contradictions like that. You know, the retelling of the same events, but there are key points that are opposite of each other. And you're absolutely right. Now, I would also, you know, what's better than the Job story when it comes to the Satan is the story of Balaam. You know that story?
Is that the one with the animal? That's the one with the talking.
The talking donkey.
Yeah, talking donkey. Yeah.
So what's funny about that story is that when they first come to Balaam, God tells Balaam, "Don't go with these men." Then they sleep overnight. Then the next day, God said, "Go with these men, but only tell them what I tell you to say to them." So Balaam goes with them, right? But then it flips immediately, and this guy says that I'm angered with Balaam. So he asks the angels, "Who will be my adversary for Balaam?" And it doesn't name the angel, I don't think, but one of the angels step up and say, "I'll be your adversary, your Satan." It literally said, "Who will be the Satan for Balaam?" So God is looking for a volunteer to go and be the Satan. If that don't, but you know, they don't teach that in church.
Right.
They'll teach about the talking donkey, and he was beating the hell out the donkey, and the angel came and the angel was like, "I'm gonna kill Balaam." but they will skip over the part where the God asked for a Satan to go against Balaam after he told him to go.
Right. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's like you looking for what's that? You looking for somebody to blame for what you doing. You're gonna do it, but then I'm gonna blame this other person. I told you to do it, but then I get mad at you. Oh, if somebody else volunteered.
Yeah. And then he recruits the Satan. The Satan is recruited. So that demonstrates that the Satan is not a being. It's not a devil. It's a thing you do. And in that instance, this God was looking for someone to be that. But it's not. So when the Jewish people, when the Hebrew people learned about Zoroastrianism, that's when they start changing and creating a devil. So by the time you get in the first century and the writers of the first century, you got a devil now. But 300 years earlier, you didn't have a devil. The Satan was just a job in the holy court. But now people run around scared of a devil that don't even exist.
Right. See, it was an influence of other cultures that they got that from. You know, it's crazy, man. They don't really look up the history and stuff like that. You know, but Zoroastrianism, they had that before the Zoroastrians had all the makings of what the Jewish religion actually came from. You know, and
exactly.
You don't really bring that out.
Yeah, and they continue, and but that fear keeps people in line. You know, they're not going to step out of line because that fear it keeps that allegiance and it keeps that money flowing. You know, and so they stay there and they stay stuck and they're afraid.
Definitely, man. Yeah. That's real talk, brother. Yeah, all right, man. I'm gonna drop down, but I was gonna come and bring that. But yeah, good point, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Coach J said false or symbolic. Oh, it's just false. It's just plainly false. Now, people, because we have been finding more and more information to show that the Bible stories are just stories, people have been trying to make them into symbols and allegories. So when I was growing up in church, no one took Galatians when it says that the stories of Abraham were to use them as allegories. It was taught when I was coming up that the stories actually happen, but you can use them as allegories towards your life today. And that's what Paul was saying. But now, especially over the last 10, 15 years, people have been saying, oh, the whole thing is allegory, because they know that all that shit, none of it happened. So now they're just trying to make it into allegories, make it into symbols. They're trying to say the Christ consciousness. I remember when Christ consciousness first came out, and they're like, oh, it's Christ consciousness. And that's what Jesus was representing about, you know, heaven is at hand and heaven is inside of you and all those sorts of things. It's about Christ consciousness. It's about having and when I was growing up, if you was in a church in the late 70s and 80s talking about you got a relationship with God, you'd have got kicked out of the church. They would have been like, oh, you talking heresy. But now it's relationship with God. You got to have a relationship with Jesus. You got to get your Christ consciousness. You got to say stupid shit like what Rupert is saying about overstanding. When understanding has always meant that you comprehend a subject matter completely. But we want to change shit up now. And that's what they continue to do. And that's how this, and when we see that we're doing this today, when you look back in this religion, you see the exact same thing. What up? Okay. Low. How low can you go? How low can you go? How low can you go?
What up?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Man, doing all right. I just pulled you up and seen you was on here. I said, let me get on here and tell them my new thoughts on some things.
Okay, so to hell with my prompts. Tell me your new thoughts on some things.
Let's see. There's no God or devil. I mean, it may work. It's something maybe you can use.
Okay.
We're talking about the Gospels. You know how you have the idea that Matthew was an apostle, and then you got John was an apostle, correct? Supposedly.
No.
The Gospels.
No.
Matthew supposedly wrote Matthew.
Yeah, I mean that's what Irenaeus said.
Right. But I'm saying now I just thought about something, how if Matthew actually was one of the disciples in the resurrection account in Luke's and John's resurrection accounts, Jesus meets them in Jerusalem first. Matthew's gospel, they meet Jesus in Galilee.
Right.
So if a person wasn't there, they brought up, him meeting them in Galilee, that would make sense. But if the first time the apostles saw Jesus after the resurrection, he wouldn't mention that when he was in Jerusalem. He wouldn't wait till they get Galilee, which is like 3 or 4 days away, to mention that part. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
Okay, so
Say it again.
Okay, so if Matthew was one of the disciples, right?
Right.
If he was one of the apostles,
okay,
and Jesus appeared to them in Jerusalem, like in Luke and in the Gospel of John. The Gospel of Matthew, he doesn't appear to them until they get to Galilee at the mountain.
Right.
So Matthew was the one who actually wrote the Gospel. It's absurd to believe that the first time he would mention seeing Jesus Christ is when they got to Galilee.
Yeah, it would be
4 days away.
Yeah, he would say that he saw him in Jerusalem. If the Luke and the John version is right, then he would say that he met them in Jerusalem.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's absurd to think that he would miss that big detail in the Gospel of Matthew.
Oh, most assuredly. I mean, there are so many absurdities of misinformation in the resurrection story. Like, the biggest one to me is Matthew says that there was an earthquake so large that it rolled away the stone. None of them other people saw it.
Man. Wow, I used to eat this up, but it sounds so wild to me now. It's amazing once you wake up.
How in the hell does nobody else recognize that there's an earthquake going on?
Yeah, nobody else wrote it down.
I mean, I lived through one earthquake, right? It was an incredibly minor earthquake that happened in Atlanta, but it happened at like 4, 5 in the morning. So if it was so minor that unless you were awake, you didn't know it happened. But I was getting the reason why I remember it is because I was getting a speeding ticket at the same time. And me and the police officer were both like, whoa, what was that? So we both know that there was an earthquake that happened. Right? So now, if this supposedly happened in the morning, people are walking around doing their thing, they would have known this earthquake happened.
Correct.
If Luke really did talk to eyewitnesses, the earthquake would have been something that the eyewitnesses would have said, yeah, there was this big ass earthquake that happened. I mean, if it moved a big old stone, it would have shook the walls and everything.
Right. And so in that story of Matthew, does the earthquake happen while the women are there, or is it supposed to happen before the women get there?
Before they get there?
So nobody really witnessed this.
No.
Even in the story, when you really think about it, nobody could have witnessed it.
No, I mean, I forgot whose story says that an angel rolled the stone away. I think it was Mark's version says the angel rolled the stone away or some shit like that. But either the angel did it or the earthquake did it. Which one did it? And then where were the angels? In one story, the angel is sitting on the stone. Another story, you got them standing in the tomb. Another story, one sitting at the foot and the head. Like, and another story it just says 2 men. It does. I think John just says 2 men. It don't even say angels.
Right. You know what I'm wondering now? I'm wondering if when this began, did they just have like a core story? They just sent people out saying, you could add, like they knew they could add things the way they wanted to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's like I said, they too different. They too similar. They too different. You know what I'm saying? So it's like now I'm thinking like, maybe they knew they was lying and just was trying to come up with a new religion, and that's what they came up with.
Oh, definitely. Like John, you can tell John is reading at least Matthew and Mark. And then
Right.
he adds to the story, makes it bigger. Right? There are more miracles, more things happen in John than in any of the other gospels. And John is definitely written much later, probably around 90 to 110 BCE, I mean CE.
Right.
And so we know that John is adding to the story. So yeah, there was a core story that was most likely written probably by Mark, who wasn't an eyewitness. He definitely is identified not as an eyewitness. Some scholars think that Matthew might have been someone who actually witnessed some of these things or was around in the Jesus time frame. But then Matthew copies from Mark. So why would someone who supposedly was around at that time frame copy from somebody else who wasn't? That makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. But I'm starting to think also that the Matthew that we have, I don't think that's the original Matthew. Because there's with the church father, his name started with a P. I forgot what it was. He's the one that gave the explanation of who first gave the explanation of where the Gospels came from. The first one named him, right?
That's Irenaeus.
And,
Irenaeus named him.
No, it's not Irenaeus. It's another one. It's
well, you said who named him?
It started with a P. His name started with a P. I can't think of it right now. I'm just looking at it today. Because Eusebius wrote about it, and he said that Matthew, they said Matthew actually was written first, and that Mark, who was with Peter, got permission from Peter to write the gospel, right? And so they say, but and what the guy said, he said Matthew wrote a gospel in Hebrew of sayings of Jesus, right? And so later on, when Irenaeus got attributed, the gospel we got now is attributed to Matthew. But I'm starting to think that they had the sayings gospel first, that was in Hebrew, and that this gospel that we got in Matthew was just an anonymous gospel. It had nothing to do with, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like I said, it copied Mark. I think it was a core gospel they always copied.
Right.
I don't think Mark actually. I think Mark might have came first in the four, but I think there was a core story already written down somewhere that they all were quoting from.
Well, there were some core stories, so I just looked it up real quick, and it says that you're talking about Papias.
Yeah, Papias. Yep.
Yeah, and later, but then they say Irenaeus provided or at least popularized the traditions attributed to the text of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now, I don't see. I'm not deep diving into Papias right now, but so Justin Martyr and Papias were around relatively the same time. Justin Martyr called it the gospel of the apostles. I mean, the wisdom of the apostles. So him and Papias may have been saying the same thing, but then Irenaeus is the one who's credited with giving them their names.
And you have Clement. If you check out Clement one day, look up Clement Rome, the first one. He actually quotes a story from Matthew, but he calls it the Gospel of Jesus. But the story he quotes has several extra lines to it that's not in the Gospel. And it is I forgot, it's talking about the forgiving somebody 7 times 70, or your brother, whatever it is. It's a whole big story that is a big part missing, but Clement is quoted from it as if that's the gospel of Jesus Christ. You know, like it's a
right.
I think it was a big gospel that they all borrowed from it and spread around. You know.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
He didn't quote say, "Oh, Luke's gospel." He's one of the earliest writers. He didn't say Luke's gospel. He didn't say Matthew's gospel. He didn't say Mark's gospel. He said like the gospel of Jesus Christ, something like that.
Okay. Now I do think
and you read it, so I'm like, oh, he's quoting Matthew, and I'm like, but this part missing in Matthew. That don't make sense.
So there was some. I agree that there was some early oral stories that was going around. And Papias, he wrote the exposition of the sayings of the Lord. So he never named them. He didn't name them. So Irenaeus named them later. But yeah, I do think that the earliest writings come from Paul, whoever this Paul person was. And those stories, I think Paul was using oral traditions about a Messiah type that was created in storyline, which I honestly think they got it from Vespasian, where Vespasian had Josephus and Philo of Alexander probably put it together. This oral tradition.
Josephus, that's in the Antiquities, or that's something else? I don't remember reading that in the Antiquities.
No, that's nothing you're gonna read. That's just when you study Vespasian and how he conducts himself, you know, people have patterns. So when Vespasian went and he fought the Druids, he recognized that the way to defeat the Druids was to change their story, get rid of their story and change it. So he got rid of the Druid story and changed it. So then immediately after the Druids, he was called down to go to Jerusalem. Now he's seeing the same thing. The reason why these people are fighting is because of this story that they have. So he gets Josephus as his scribe and the scribe of his son Titus. And since the Jewish revolts were the biggest issue in the Roman Empire at that time frame, it's circumstantial, but it serves the reason that Vespasian would do the exact same thing. Take somebody, Josephus and Philo, who knows the Jewish literature, and then rearrange it to make a passive Messiah, hoping that that will satisfy the Jewish people and they will stop fighting against the Roman government. Now, there is nothing that supports that other than their behavior, than his past history of how he conducted himself. So you're not going to find a writing of that. So I think now, and Josephus and Philo, they were early first century. And then in and around the 50s and 60s, some letters of Paul come out talking about Christians and all this kind of stuff. And there are some thoughts that there was a previous person named Crestius in the 1st century BCE who was trying to be a Jewish Messiah, and that his storyline was being used also with storylines from other Hellenized, Greek mythologies.
And if they create this story about Jesus dying for the sins of the world, then you don't need the temple no more.
Right. You don't need your temple. You don't need the Jewish leadership. They tell you that you need to follow the rules of the government that you were born under. So it creates a suitable sheep people in the government that you don't have to fight against.
It might be true, man. Like I said, I've been reading lately, looking at just trying to connect the dots, and it's like, the story, it for it to be so much like it be so different, it's got to be a reason for that. They can't be all just copying the same thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. I'm thinking, it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
It might, like I said, it might just be totally fabricated.
I think it is totally fabricated based on previous information, and then you just make a new version of it.
Right.
You make this peace-loving version of it, of loving your enemies and paying your taxes. That way the government stays in control.
Let somebody smack you and take it. God gonna get them. You don't have to.
Yeah.
That would take care of revolting and stuff. You give it all to God to do, and they could push over the populace. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because the Messiah was supposed to free the people, literally, and sit on the throne of David and reinstate the Levitical priest, so that the priests will always have sacrifice. When you read the Old Testament Messiah prophecies, and Jesus didn't do any of that.
Yeah. How you deal with? I guess the only thing that I'm still having trouble with is I won't say supernatural, but the spiritual stuff that people actually experience in the movement itself. You know what I'm saying? Like the tongue speaking, all that stuff. Paul talks about it. The miracles, the visions. It seems to mimic even like modern day Pentecostalism. It seemed to be like they really believed they was going through all of this. That they was really experiencing something.
Indoctrinations plus emotions create hallucinations and delusions. Like, think about it. Speaking in tongues there's two different types. You're speaking and different people of different languages hear you in their language. That's the first speaking in tongues. The second speaking in tongues is some unknown language. But if there's not an interpreter around, then you're supposed to keep that shit to yourself. But they always saying it, and ain't nobody interpreting nothing, or the person themselves is interpreting it. But they've been indoctrinated into thinking that this is tongue speaking. If you was doing that 500 years ago, they would have said you had demons in you, right? You'd have been. Did a what's it called? Where they get the demons out? Not a circumcision. What? I forgot what it's called. Yeah.
Okay, exorcism.
Yeah, they did an exorcism on your ass back then. But it became more popularized to be able to do that in like the 1800s. And so it culturally developed. And now people think that that's a part of being holy. Right? So
I experienced it. And the way I experienced it, I almost think that some of this stuff is almost like a byproduct of it just being, spiritual. Like,
I think it's a byproduct of being indoctrinated, and then you are emotionally, and you get emotionally caught up.
But I was kind of anti-practice, and then when it happened with me, it seemed like something came over me. It happened.
Yeah, your emotions.
It's a little different.
Try to remember what you was going through at that time frame. What was life like at that time frame?
I wasn't really going through much.
It ain't got to be bad stuff. It could be good stuff. See, we always think it's got to be something negative. It ain't always got to be something negative.
I know, but I just think there is something out there, and that's why we have these experiences across religions themselves.
Yeah, your mind. Your mind.
Could it be like some type of something we tap into that's in us? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, your mind and your emotions.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, man, I done had so many weird things that's happened in my life that kind of. I think that's another reason why religion is still big, is that, and we don't talk about that part. We get into all the logical arguments, but people experience some weird shit. I experienced some weird shit that seem to be outside of what we know naturally that is normal for us.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Think about it like this.
Premonitions and stuff like that. Premonitions. I know what I've been led to talk to a person, and when I start talking to the person, I'm talking about something that's going on in their life, and I don't even know this person. And I've had all type of stuff happen like that, and dream about something, and it happened. So it's stuff like that. It's like, well, what's the explanation for all that? And it's something that a lot of people go through, and it's
sometimes
hard to just say it's just emotions.
Sometimes there are no explanations. Sometimes there are. Our mind is so powerful, and there are so many things we don't know about our minds and about the thought, the energy of our thoughts. Like every thought you have is energy, and we know that that energy goes out, and we know that other people can receive that. This is why, at the same time, two people can come up with the same invention at the exact same time. Like the telephone was invented by two people who had nothing to do with each other at the same time. Same thing with electricity, with a light bulb. Same time. There was a study with the little monkeys in Japan who they taught to wash their food, and then the damn monkeys in Okinawa started washing their food too, who was of the same type of monkeys. They started washing their food, right? These monkeys were never in contact with each other, but that same thought process, because animals have thoughts. So you've been able
to, like a frequency that we like operate on, certain. So that's what I'm saying. So maybe when people are very religious and stuff, they reach a certain frequency that causes some of this shit to.
I'm not religious, but I do the same thing. I can be in the presence of somebody, and even though I don't have a lot of sympathy or empathy, but I can still feel their grief or feel their happiness, like without them demonstrating it, or just can tell that there's something going on with a person, good or bad. And I'm not religious at all.
Right.
That's just a quality of being a human.
It's like a common field that we all tap into, like kind of like between human beings, like the type of force, like kind of.
Yeah, that's why I tell people when I'm dealing with people with business, I always tell them whatever business idea you have, somebody else got the same damn idea in the same space, Same place you talking about, doing it the same damn way. So if you will sit on it, and then next thing you know, somebody's doing it, you be like, man, I had that idea.
Yeah, but I didn't have that happen to me. I even came up with comic book characters, and the exact characters, the same team, came out like a couple years later.
When you
the exact same powers, everything.
Yeah, and then there's just going to be some things that we just don't know. We haven't figured out the science to understand it yet, and so in today's world we just say we don't know. We should be just saying we don't know. In ancient times, when they were accustomed to when the rains came, when the rain stopped, when the winter comes, they knew the cycle. But then here's this hurricane that comes, or this volcano that explodes. And all of a sudden, because they don't understand how tectonic plates work, they don't understand how weather works, they then say it must be a god who's doing this. Yeah. So they make up shit.
Sacrifice a virgin, throw the virgin in the volcano.
Yeah, because they didn't know. But then once they find out, once we started understanding those things, ain't nobody talking about, oh, God caused Katrina to happen, except for the delusional people.
Yeah, man.
You know, how you gonna say that God caused a hurricane to happen when hurricanes come off the African coast into the Caribbean every goddamn year?
Yeah, because it's people still holding on to that, religious stuff,
Yeah.
Deconstructing, now I understand it. I'm like, now I understand. If it was a flood, it was a natural thing that occurred. No God did it.
Yeah. So what people are calling supernatural is just natural things that happen that you don't understand how they happened.
Exactly.
And when we can connect with each other, and when you have a connection with somebody, or even if you don't, but you can feel them, then it's just something we don't understand fully. We just don't understand it.
How do you feel about the idea that this is a simulation?
I think that people watch The Matrix too much.
Only reason I give it credence is because of premonitions. How do you explain premonitions? My explanation is that you got certain individuals that, for some reason, just like in the Matrix, like I said, the Matrix, they're able to jump in the program. They jump in the program. Have a premonition about something that's gonna happen. It's already, it's already supposed to happen, and somehow some people are able to jump ahead, and so they get this premonition.
The Sons of Mithra had this saying as part of their little cult that time is like a river, except it goes in a circle. And when you reach a certain conscious state, you can pick time from different parts of the circle. Now, that was something that's taught in Hermetics as well. But scientifically, and it's funny you bring this up, because scientifically, I was just listening to some scientists a couple of days ago who were talking about they was talking about how time doesn't really exist in the format of the linear time that we think it does, and that they think that everything in the universe happens at the exact same time, that there is no such thing as a now, that the past, present, and future are all happening at the exact same time. And if you were able to tap into that, you would be able to see things in the past that we call the past, and see things that we call in the future, because all of it is happening now. Now they're just starting with this process. It was like 3 hours long, and about an hour and a half into it, I had to go. But it was interesting, but it's a concept. And because we don't fully understand how everything works. So I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe the Sons of Mithra were right. Maybe these scientists are right. I have no idea, and we may not find out.
That's why I do that as an idea of there being gods and stuff, because we do have things that happen that appear to be determinative and to be outside of our control, or even outside of our natural senses of what we perceive natural.
Yeah, I'm sure man used to be at a state kind of like how birds and shit are. Like me and my wife, we always say that if we see all the birds flying in one direction, off a whole bunch of them, we gonna follow them birds. But I think there was a time frame where man was so attuned to the earth that we would know when we need to get the hell on, like the birds do. because we have a magnetic field. We have a magnetic field around us that should be and was attached to, was in unity with the Earth's magnetic field, but we've lost that. So, you know, the birds know when some shit about to happen. We should be able to know too. We built on this earth the same way they were.
Right. Well, that's wild about the monkeys, though. What you said about the monkeys.
Yeah, that's a popular study. If you look it up about some monkeys washing their food in Japan and Okinawa, you should be able to find it.
Yeah, they evolving right in front of our faces.
Yeah.
At least.
Mm-hmm.
Get smarter. Some of them, I mean, they can talk. I mean, you know, not talk like us, but you know, they doing a lot more than what we think they could do. You know, because you know, some of them apes and stuff just do sign language and stuff. So.
Yep. But man, let me let some of these other people get up here. I got like
thanks,
3 people waiting.
Good time talking with you.
All right, appreciate you.
All right.
Later. I think this person should be next. I'm gonna try to get everybody in the right order that they signed on. Okay, maybe they're gone. That person must be gone. And then this person, I think, was after them. Jarrell. Jarrell. Are you Superman's father? Jarrell. Jarrell.
Yo.
All right, you there?
Yeah, hello?
There you go. Gotcha. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
How you doing?
I'm great. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Just out here doing some yard work, you know. I was just listening to some lives, you know.
Oh, okay. Did you mean to click on the request?
My phone's been sitting on the table. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Oh, okay.
I'm outside doing yard work. Like, you know, I got a garden and stuff, and I got a little gazebo I keep up. So I just came out here and we had a little party, and I'm just cleaning up the mess.
Oh, okay. So you ain't mean to come on.
I didn't hear. If I hit it, I didn't mean to. I apologize.
No, you good. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I was just listening, man.
Okay.
You know?
All right. Well, I'll drop you down there and keep listening.
Yes, sir. I apologize.
No problem.
Keep the good work up, though, man.
Appreciate it. I will.
Yes, sir. Keep it up.
All right. Somebody said Satan pressed the request button for him. Y'all funny. Y'all killing me. Lynn Lynch. Lynn.
Hey, sir, how are you?
Pretty good. How you doing, Lynn?
I'm doing all right. I really love this conversation we got going on here.
Thank you. What do you think about it?
Well, I had experience with it. It's I'm not religious, but I was raised that way.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 9 years ago, when I was 46 years old, I had a spontaneous spiritual awakening. And after 13 years in college, I had these knowings. And so I had studied the morphogenic field and all that kind of stuff. But it gave me different eyes for the Bible. And I'm not going to be talking from a religious aspect at all in any way, shape, or form.
What's the morphogenic field?
My dad was a Vietnam vet and didn't get any help that he needed for his stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
His father was a Baptist minister, so I was raised in that way.
Okay.
I don't want to get into all the details, you know, you drag that shit up, but what I started realizing is when you look at, so in the Navy from 89 to 93, I was in telecommunications and electronics. All right. So to just do all my study and everything, started looking at the allegory of like the crucifixion. All right. And it's really about healing the nervous system. And this whole, all this exoteric religious stuff that we've been brought up with is kind of inverted. Like, you know, there's a God outside of you, fear, control, blah, 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 the whole thing's used for. And so like the 12 disciples are the 12 pairs of cranial nerves. And it's when you and it's about bringing the mind to a state of coherency. And just like with you know, the story of Moses and all that, it's all like stories about bringing that, you know, getting that nervous system calm through meditation and knowing, it's like be still and know you are God. Like, and so I got its title, and basically means, you know, to be able to hold the divine within, and the word divine is masculine and feminine, and it has nothing to do with gender. It's the conscious mind is the masculine, and the subconscious mind is the feminine, and it's about that like when you meditate, it's like that catalyst for the alchemical marriage of those minds becoming one within you. You know?
I understand what you.
So, like, I've always been able to read a room. You know, it's just like those monkeys, you know, on those islands, and I feel like the air around us has this energy that we can either have the ability to tap into or not. And if you know, you got someone that's in a state of fight or flight or fear, or, you know, it doesn't have a coherent nervous system, they can't tap into that.
Okay.
And so
hold on for a second. So it sounds like to me that, and I've been through some, and if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm going down the wrong pathway. But doing my study of Hermeticism and alchemy, and some Buddhism and Taoism, that's what the pathway that you're talking about sounds like, which honestly has nothing to do with the Bible, though.
Oh,
because
but it's hidden. It's coded.
No, I don't think it's coded. I think people, we are attached to a certain particular religion based on where we were brought. Hold on, let me finish. We are attached to a religion based on where we grew up. Right. So we are surrounded. If you grew up in America, you're surrounded by Christianity. Being out in the Navy, you know, they got Bible studies. And so Christianity is all around you. So whether you are directly indoctrinated or socially indoctrinated, we get indoctrinated towards a certain religion. Now, we may not attach ourselves where we're a participant in that religion. But when you start studying alchemy and hermetics and things of that nature, the metaphysical world, there's a tendency for a lot of people to then attach it back to the common thread that they do know about. But the Bible is meant to, most of the stuff in the Bible is literal. They meant that the flood happened. They meant the Exodus happened. They meant that Jesus died on a cross. They didn't mean anything metaphysical about it.
I see where you're coming from. You know, the thing is that it's in the breadcrumbs, and Christians do teach it from an exoteric perspective, as if it had literally happened. I agree 100%. And growing up in that religion with, you know, my dad's dad being a Baptist minister, my dad's oldest brother, a Baptist minister, my great uncle on the other side of the family were a minister.
Mm-hmm.
I get it 100% where you're coming from. I basically in April 17, 2017, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. All right. And, you know, I've studied Hermeticism, alchemy, and all of those things. I was forced to retire through the VA, and so just the the crucifixion alone is an allegory for a Kundalini awakening. It's the Yeshua's in the middle, and it's all about sitting on the right hand of the throne. And the thief on the right said, "Remember me," and that's the subconscious mind. And the one on the left rejected him, and that's the conscious mind. And then if you look in Book of Revelation, Yeshua told him to cast the net to the right side of the boat, and they caught 153 fish. 1 + 5 + 3 is 9. 9 is consciousness. So it's in the breadcrumbs. It's not, Matthew 6:22, when it talks about thine eye be single, the body is full of light. So it's not literal. It's not intended to ever be literal. Like,
So
it says, do not lean on your own understanding. Well, that means take it literally.
okay, look, okay, you're starting to preach a little bit, but
I don't need to be preaching. I'm not even religious.
no, well, you can be preachy without being religious, but you are religious in the sense of taking the metaphysical teachings and connecting them to the Bible. I literally did the exact same things to the Kemetic teachings. In the way that you utilize the cross, I utilized the Ankh when I was in that phase of my life. And I put Osiris and Isis on the right and the left. Osiris representing the male Kundalini energy, and the Osiris representing the female Kundalini energy, and Horus being the light, being your pineal gland, that single eye being clear. And my point is that you can take the metaphysical teachings, and especially utilizing Kundalini and chakras and all them kind of things, and you can infuse them into almost every religion.
Exactly. I agree 100%.
But that doesn't mean that that's what they meant when they were writing these things. That it just means that we can reinterpret these things and to make them fit whatever we choose for them to be.
I'm not trying to be preachy at all. I'm just sharing my experience. I had to decode it because, being raised in that hellfire damnation thing. But, like I said, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, and when I started looking at the Bible and all the other religions, I've been retired for 10 years. I studied like all the religions, Kemetic science and spirituality, Hinduism. I think that Yeshua was teaching Hinduism, and if you look at the esoteric even of the Quran, I've listened to. I'm not going to say that I've studied the Quran, but like even Muhammad going into a cave for 3 days is pointing towards meditation. And that's as far as I can go because that's all I remember from the conversation. But I'm not trying to say, point people to, one's particular religion, but I think that there's an ether around us. And when we heal the nervous system, and come into our own and see all these stories as anytime I'm like thinking about something or some kind of doubt comes up, that's a nature that we have to cut off. It's like you have a garden and it's like I got to pull the weeds. So something comes up from my subconscious mind, or if I notice something consciously, I could react to that trigger, be triggered and allow that to, sit in me. And then I planted that in my garden. So then that's the fruit that I get from it.
I don't doubt that.
I practice this stuff all the time.
Okay, you're missing my point.
I don't think
I'm not doubting that you had a moment and that changed your life. I'm not doubting that at all. People have that all the time. What I'm saying is that we have a tendency to attach it to something else. Really, what you're talking about should not be attached to anything except what you're talking about. Attaching Kundalini energy to the Bible actually goes against what the Bible talks about, right? attach, doing, now if you were looking at, if you was talking about the Gnostic teaching, some of the Gnostic teaching will follow along that similar pathway, but the Bible as we have it does not follow in a more enlightenment type of mentality. So that's my only issue, is attaching it to the Bible.
Well, I've spent 10 years doing it, and and what it's helped me do is decode and detach from the chains, the bondage that exoteric Christianity wants you to be in, and find your sovereignty. So to me, it's all about just like coming to your own sovereignty and tapping into the field that we live in, which, like the Gnostics call the monad or the pleroma.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman that was studying those monkeys started studying what they call the morphogenic field.
Right.
And not that I'm trying to tie it to the Bible, but if you look at the 7 churches that Paul wrote to, the names symbolically tie up to the 7 chakras, the 7 lampstands, those 7 candles, all of that in the book of Revelation. And it's about the revelation of Christ in you, which is just, and then I've seen where people that study anatomy will take the 12 disciples, or the, what is it? In the Old Testament, it's the 12 nations or the 12 tribes, but it's all allegory towards healing the vagus nervous system.
I hear you, but what I also hear is that you don't want to disconnect from the Bible. You say that you disconnected from these things, but you don't truly want to disconnect from the Bible, because if you did, then you would look deeper into what you're saying. The number 7 has been a sacred number for many different cultures around the world who had nothing to do with Christianity, nothing to do with Yahweh whatsoever. It's just a number that when people, especially when they start, counting in seven days out of the year and so on and so forth, the number 7 started becoming this number of completion and all these sorts of things. So the number 7 becomes popularized. The number 5 becomes popularized. 8 becomes popularized. The 12 becomes a number, right? And the thing about it is that when you say you're disconnecting from the Bible, but you want to attach everything metaphysical to the Bible, then you're not really disconnecting from it. Because if you were saying that the Bible is allegorical and metaphorical, then you would have to look at stories like in Judges 19, when Japheth kills his daughter because he made a promise to God, or Sodom and Gomorrah, not just the raining of hellfire, but when Lot gets drunk and has sex with his 2 daughters to produce children. Like, those things don't connect to any metaphysical teachings whatsoever. So you basically have to cherry pick what fits to the metaphysical.
No, so bondage in the Bible is connected to religion. So slavery doesn't mean actual slavery; it means bondage to religion. Jesus was trying to tell people that religion was the problem.
No, slavery meant slavery in the Bible. I can't let you. I can't let you go on that one.
And so the young children aren't actually literal children. Little boys are carnal thoughts. Little girls are emotions. And so none of those things are actually literal. And it's not that I'm just.
So you're saying that they didn't have slaves?
I'm saying they took it literal. And they took it literal, just like
because their God told them to.
Just. But they took it literal, like sacrificing animals. It had nothing to do with sacrificing literal animals. It was about the carnal mind, the animal mind. That's what I'm saying.
No, it was literally about sacrificing animals. It was literally about having slaves. This God in Leviticus 25 said, "You will buy your male and female slaves from the nations around you and the foreigners who reside within you, and you will own them as property and pass them down to your sons." This God told them literally to buy people and hold them as property.
It's an example of a God in man's image from that state of consciousness.
The whole book.
Different levels of consciousness in there and it's about the evolution of carnal mind consciousness to sovereignty, to we're all one. It's what it is.
The Bible doesn't teach about oneness. The Bible teaches about that the Israelite are the special children and everybody else is adopted.
Christians don't teach about oneness.
Judaism doesn't either.
They teach it as a literal damn story. You're right. You're right.
There is nothing in the Bible that teaches oneness of all people. From the Old Testament to the New Testament. Even the books that are outside the Bible, they don't teach about oneness of all people.
I didn't come here to talk about the damn Bible. I came here because you were talking about the morphogenic field. And I really think that once we clean up our biofield, or it's also called a solari field, that field that we live in, that's around our body, once we clean up the chakras, then it's like, so when you're in communications, okay, it's like, you know, like if you turn a channel,
right,
you get that static.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're like, think you're a sinner, or, you know, you're living in, you know, thoughts, feelings, words, actions, you know, have those things that aren't serving to you. Because if I make a judgment towards you, my subconscious mind doesn't know if I'm judging you or me. Okay. And so that means I have to be careful of what the conscious mind plants into the subconscious mind.
I can agree with you on that.
So, exactly, 100%.
But you are the one who attached it to the Bible, my guy.
Well, I did. I see some of your other topics up here, so I did bring that up. But the thing is that through my experience, like my chakras blew open. Like I don't know if we're probably similar in age, but remember the movie The Fifth Element?
Yeah.
Where the young lady falls back and she has a great big beam of light come out of her heart.
Yeah.
I had that experience. I saw the two serpents rise up and bow down to my damn pineal gland. And when I set up after this experience, I had this like glow around my head. All right. And I had some psychosis because I wasn't prepared for any of this. But the thing is, you know, even after going to college for 13 damn years, I had access to knowledge. Like, I was like, where in the hell did this knowledge come from?
All right. Okay. So we reached our time limit because I try to keep everybody on a certain time limit because I got other people waiting. But before you go, I need to ask you one more question. From 90 to 93, were you on ship?
I was on the USS Saipan.
Really?
I was.
We served together. I was on the Nashville, and then the second time I was on the Austin. I think it was when I was on the Austin that we was with the Saipan.
Okay, so we probably did a tour together.
Yeah, when going in. So was that when we went to Bosnia or went to the Persian Gulf?
Well, we sat off the coast of Monrovia, Liberia for 7 days straight. We
were together. We were on the same detachment.
I was a radium man on the Saipan.
Wait, so you evacuated Liberia?
Yes, sir, we did.
I was on the evacuation of Liberia.
Right.
So that was the Nashville. So I was on the Nashville then. And then, yes, and then the next year we went out in Austin. Oh, no. Yeah, and then we went and we set off. Yeah, the whole Bosnia thing started up. We had it was supposed to be a great cruise, but then the Bosnia thing started up and messed up the whole damn thing.
Yep, I was there. And then we went, it wasn't even, maybe not even a year later, we went to Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We served together. Small world.
Right on. Were you a Marine or a Navy?
Marine.
Right on, my brother. Right on. Well, it's you know, the only other person I've met, like maybe a couple other people when I was in grad school in Carbondale, Illinois. One of my professors was in Liberia, and we evacuated him. So I was sitting there in class talking about, my experience in the Navy. And he was like, hang on a second. He was like, were you guys in Monrovia, Liberia? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, I was there. You guys evacuated me.
Out of which one?
When I was at breakfast in Carbondale, there was a guy that was our waiter, and he was operations specialist. He was a E5 operations specialist, and he was my freaking waiter at dinner.
Yep. A guy that I evacuated out of Liberia, he wound up working for me at CVS some years later in 1999. Small world.
I sincerely apologize. I am not religious, but
No,
I
you're
had
good.
to decode. I had to decode and deconstruct from that. And so, you get on a roll with something, and you're like, hang on a second, you're connecting dots, and you're connecting dots. So one of the things I enjoy is intellectual conversations and getting on some of these lives where people are talking about Christianity from an exoteric perspective, and then just throwing around the esoteric. But I am not.
I understand. I understand. But I will tell you this, and I definitely got to get to the next person. My consciousness and awareness grew when I detached the Bible completely from metaphysical teachings. So I'm not telling you to do it, but try it. Try detaching the Bible from it and just looking at the metaphysical teachings, the alchemy teachings, hermetics without the Bible. And if you have
I've
this,
done that.
yeah,
I've done that. I have. I just enjoy the dialogue around it from an intellectual perspective, and try to deconstruct people that are caught up in it. That's it. I just want them to see that it is another message. But hey, my brother, I'm gonna follow you, and it's amazing. We had the same similar experience in the military. I love you, man. You take care of yourself and have a good rest of your day.
All right, you have a great day. That is so crazy. I'm telling y'all, it's a very small world. I know this is the order. I know Back, and then Helen, and then another person. Back.
What's going on, buddy?
How you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy.
Good. What you got on the subject matter?
Yeah. So, are you the one deconstructed?
Am I the one who's deconstructed? Yeah.
Yeah, why?
Because I studied the Bible and studied the archaeology and the science around it.
Okay. So you didn't see any consistencies in Genesis?
I saw some. I mean, you're gonna see certain things. What do you mean by consistencies? Let me clarify.
Yeah. When it says that all things will reproduce after their kind.
Well, I mean, that's natural biology.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
But the other explanation is that everything came from one single point.
Yeah, no. Everything didn't come from one single point. No, it's not.
So your worldview is not consistent. So
no. Hold on. So, as an example of everything not coming from one point, we know that Neanderthal, the Sovian, and Homo sapiens weren't they were different branches. Now there may have been a common hominid, but they have spurned off into different branches to become their own individual type of hominid. And it wasn't until migration patterns that they then bred out the Sovian and the Neanderthal.
Would you say that it's a possibility that every creature that's on this planet have their own branch coming from two original copies?
Two original. What do you? Okay.
Meaning like for example, two cats, a male cat, a female cat. That one has their own branches. That's why you see variety within the same kind.
I would say that that there was a common ancestors, and then they branched off from the common ancestor.
I'm not talking about branching off. I'm talking about their own branches. Their own branches, one branch.
What, that just came out of nothing?
No, meaning that. Well, you believe that
No, I don't. There's no such thing as nothingness. So it is the Christian belief that things came out of nothingness.
Okay, that's crazy because if that's the case, then what would the Bible say that God created the heavens and earth?
Yeah, out of nothingness. What did he create it out of?
Well, there's a source that's claiming to do this. There's a living source, but your book doesn't have a source.
What does he? Yes, it does. My worldview has a source of energy. Everything comes from energy. So where does your God create from? Himself?
So that's the thing. So
where does your God create from?
Hold on, my friend.
Well, I mean, I asked you asked me a question, I give you an answer. I asked you a question, I expect to get an answer.
Exactly. So okay, what was your question?
What does your God create from?
Right. He speaks it. He said, "Let there be light."
So out of nothingness.
So right, it's coming from. So okay, I put it this way: if he doesn't say anything, nothing comes.
You can't prove that. You can't demonstrate that. But there is no such thing as nothingness. Where does your? But you're claiming your God just spoke and existence happened, right? Matter happened.
You see, I can't prove that, but I say that God said that there be light, and it was.
Yeah, and the singularity exploded, and there was light for this known universe. What's the difference?
The difference is that there's a source, the life source giver. You don't have a life source giver. You have to.
No, we do. There is. No. See, no, I'm not going to hold on when you try to tell me I don't have something when I just expressed that when you look at the singularity was already mass and energy and frequency. It exploded, and then our known universe began to evolve into its current until we get to where we are now. So there was something that is more than likely cyclic. What you're saying is that there was nothing, and your God just spoke, and out of nothingness he created. So don't say that. You can't tell me what I'm saying when I've already expressed what I'm saying.
Okay, so basically you're coming from action instead of the action giver. You're pretty much starting from action. You're there, but there's no action giver in your worldview.
There doesn't have to be. Why does there have to be an action giver that's a conscious being when nature itself produces out of a cycle of nature?
Show me that. Show me that you can get. Hold on, my friend.
Okay.
Show me that you can get this. Right. Won't you make us see it? Because the Bible says Genesis 1:29.
What? Dude, I can barely hear you. Hey, hold on. I was saying I can barely hear you because you kind of whispering.
Yeah, I don't say nobody, but so if your worldview, right, show me that these things can't produce these things. You can't show me that.
Yes.
You will leave science and then go straight to your delusion.
Yes, we can. We demonstrate that our matter universe formed from antimatter and matter collisions, and then 1 out of a billion collisions create, and then matter is sustained, but the matter was already present. Matter has always been present, but then matter becomes sustained when antimatter and matter collides with each other, and then from the singularity, all that matter exploded out of the singularity, and then the universe formed over billions of years. We can demonstrate that by looking at the radiometric data, the expansion of the universe. We can see how old the Earth is by looking at core samples and ice samples. So what are you talking about? It has been demonstrated.
No, has it? Okay, so
what's your proof that it hasn't? I just gave you my sources, my proof of that it happened. What's your proof that it hasn't, other than no, it didn't?
Sir, all you did was just repeat what you've heard and what you've read. You haven't tested any of these things.
Have you tested? Have you tested anything in the Bible?
Hold on, my friend.
No. See, no. There's no hold on, my friend, because that's a bullshit ass answer. when people say, "Oh, you haven't tested, you haven't." Were you there when Moses was there? Were you there when God created the Garden of Eden? Were you there with Jesus? You weren't. So in the same way, that you try to use that bullshit argument of you ain't tested it, it's a bullshit argument because you weren't there when Jesus walked around.
So just like how the court of law works, right? The court of law works with evidence.
No, don't change that. Don't change that. Were you there when God created?
I was not there.
Then the same thing that you tried to push on me about you haven't tested, which you have no idea what I have tested and have not tested.
You just ignored everything. So I just told you that I wasn't there. Okay, so I wasn't there. But I see the evidence. That's what I said.
Oh, you see the evidence, just like we see the evidence. The radiometric data that I have looked at.
Just like when I say that the court of law works. Court of law works with evidence. They produce the exhibit A, exhibit B. They produce DNA and things like that that are behind the crime scene. So the crime scene would be the creation, which would be the seeds. If you can show me, right, in your worldview, how do you put these elements together? What's the seed that produces a tree that produces an apple? Can you show me that using naturalism?
Your argument is a joke, sir. Because scientists after scientists have been through peer review. You can take yourself to Switzerland and go to CERN, and you can see the bombardment of matter and see how they react. You can go to certain telescopes in Peru or Hawaii. There are some in the United States where you can see the radiometric data of the farthest reaches of the universe that taps into the Hubble telescopes and other telescopes. You can see this for yourself if you wanted to. So you claiming that we don't have any evidence is a bunch of bullshit, because we do have the evidence. You just don't accept it.
Do you know who Delroy Lindo is?
Delroy Lindo?
Yes.
The actor? Yeah.
You get that a lot, don't you?
Sometimes.
Anyway, that's just a sidebar. Now, you dismissed it. The reason I said that because you notice how I talked about something that had nothing to do with what we're talking about. You did the same thing, because that's not what I did. That's how we demonstrate. That's how we know. That's how we know the age of the universe. That's how we know the age of the earth. But that's not.
And it's evidence. That is evidence. That's how we know. And when we look at uranium dating, we are able to tell how old a rock is. When we look at through the telescopes and see the edges of our known universe, we are able to tell how old the universe is.
You know, let's say he was there with God created Adam and Eve, right? And he was to walk upon, and you would see them out there on those stage, but they were created 2 days ago. You would assume that they were there for 30 years, but actually, they were just there for 2. You get what I'm saying? So the universe will appear to be old, but it's not.
That whole aged Earth example is just something that answers from Genesis came up with. Well, they didn't come up with it, but they spout out over and over again to try to get over the fact that the Earth is supposed to be 6,004 years old. Well, the Earth was created in 4004, so 6,000 years old. But God made an aged Earth. But what we see is that if he had made an aged Earth, then how were there human civilizations that are older than the Adam and Eve story?
Like who?
The Akkadians, the Sumerians, the people at Göbekli Tepe and Taran Tepe. Those civilizations were there before, older than the Adam and Eve story. Taran Tepe is dated around 7,000 to 9,000 years old. Taran Tepe is 13,000 to 12,000 years old. Göbekli Tepe is between 7,000 and 9,000 years old.
Could those numbers be wrong?
No. The radiometric data shows that that's the age of the stone pillars that they put up.
The mechanisms that are used for these data, the those things make mistakes.
Everything can make mistakes, but those are not making a mistake.
But you can't say that 100%.
Oh, okay. So can your Bible writers make mistakes?
Writers make mistakes. Regarding what?
Can they make a mistake?
Regarding what?
In their writing.
Specifically.
Okay. Can your Bible writer make a mistake about what was created first, man or the animals?
No, definitely not, because it explains it, and then you can even Google it.
Okay.
And when you Google it, it gives you. Hold on, my friend, I'm answering it.
Okay.
And when you Google it, it gives you the explanation in order.
Mm-hmm. Right. If you're reading Genesis 1 says that the animals and the plants were made before man. Genesis 2 has man being made before. Genesis 2 has man being made before the animals and the plants. So those are two different orders. So I ask you again, can your Bible make mistakes?
I noticed that you skipped over, you skipped what I said to you, and you pretty much.
I didn't skip it. I didn't skip it. I asked you the question. No, dude, I asked you a question. You said that the Bible can't make mistakes. I showed you a mistake, and now you want to flip to something else.
No, I'm not doing that. I already answered you already.
Are the orders different?
Sir, listen. So you were so into your worldview that it went over your head.
Oh my God, dude! Stop trying to use these psychological bullshit. I asked a very simple question. I gave you a very complete answer. The Bible shows that Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 have two different orders of the creation of man versus animals and plants. You said that the Bible doesn't make mistakes, but it does. And you, instead of admitting the mistake, you try to go to some philosophical brainwashing bullshit.
No, man, I'm on the same subject.
Did the Bible make a mistake then?
I need to get to address your point, sir.
Because you started going somewhere else talking about my worldview instead of answering the question. My worldview has nothing to do with what the Bible says in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2.
Sir, I just told you that if you Google it, because
why do I need to, bruh, why do I need to Google something when I can read it myself?
You can still read it.
You can read Genesis 1, you can read Genesis 2, and you can see that those are two different creations, and they got two different orders of creation in it. I don't need to Google that. I can read it.
You notice I stay quiet when you monologue and I don't say a word, sir.
Actually, you do.
I'm trying to explain it to you. But you're not explaining it to me.
Because you're not answering the question, bro. You trying to talk about some you can Google it when I'm saying you can just go read it. I'm not going to listen to some you can Google it when I can read it for my damn self. I don't need Google for that. And you still haven't answered the question. I'm convinced that y'all are delusional as hell and don't know and refuse to answer questions. It's not that hard.
Sir, if you Google it,
oh my God!
I'll give you an example. Like explain Genesis creation period. It's going to give you the explanation. It's going to put it in context where it's all in order, and it's going to give you the context. You know, so because one verse explains the beginning, and if you just read that, you understand that it is correct.
Sir,
context after you see what you just read.
Sir,
but you don't want to do the work.
I have done this work more times than you can imagine. But and matter of fact, I just did this. So you saying that Google is the ultimate authority and not your Bible?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that because it will explain it faster than I'm going to give you the verses and the context on those verses and where step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's going to make sense.
Why do I need some Google to give me the context of the verses when I can read it and see that in Genesis chapter 2, it said, because in Genesis chapter 2, it says that the Lord formed God from the ground and breathed into his nostril, and man became a living soul. And then God planted a garden in the east of Eden, and he put the man in whom he had formed. And out of the ground, the Lord grew every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge and of good and evil. So he is creating this garden. And then later on, because man shouldn't be alone, he creates all the animals out of the ground. That's what Genesis 2 says. But when you go and read Genesis 1, no, don't hold on, because that was
confused that. I'm trying to show you. So after you read that, it's just giving you like confused, like what's about to take place. It's just giving you the overall what's going on here. It's going to go into details. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. So
but the details, oh my dude, are you thick in the head? That's where the details are wrong, is what I'm saying. Because when you look at Genesis 1, when you look at Genesis, when you read Genesis 1, where did I clicked on the wrong damn thing. Then Genesis 1, and it says, and God said, and you can start in like verse 20, when he bring forth every swarm of every living creature and let all the birds fly over the earth, the sky, the dome, and all that. So the God created the great seas, the monsters, and every living creature that moves, and every kind in the waters. And then he creates, so that's all about what's in the water. And then he brought forth every living creature that lives on the land, all the cattle and all that kind of stuff. And then in 26, God said, let us make humans. So he makes the seas and the animals in the seas and the insects, and then he makes the cattle, and then he makes man. But in Genesis 2, he made man first, and then out of the ground, he made all the animals, the birds, and the plants, and all that kind of stuff. I don't need Google for that.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You don't understand what you're reading, bro. That's why I said
okay. You know what? This is cyclic now, because all you're gonna say is you don't understand what you're reading. I have great reading comprehension, sir, and I'm gonna say that have a belief. And you just have a belief that you just want to continue to believe in, and that's perfectly fine. I don't care at this point, because I'm not going in circles. You can't even admit to the fact that your Bible is telling two different stories. It's inconsistent. So no, I ain't got time for that nonsense, and I'm running out of time anyway. This is why I know y'all like this kind of stuff, but I don't. I sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. And in conversations like that, it's frustrating and irritating when they ask me a question, I give them an answer, a direct answer. I ask them a question, they can't give a direct answer. They got to go 50 damn miles around the corner instead of just answering the question. Now, if you don't have the comprehension enough to be able to look at those two stories that I read and see that the animals were created first in Genesis 1, and then in Genesis 2, the animals were created after humans were created, and then try to spin it. Oh, the one is giving details and the other one's giving this, but even in the details, it's take the ethereal bullshit out the way. It's saying the order that things were created. The orders are different. The orders are wrong. So when you try to say that the radiometric data can sometimes be wrong, but then you say that your Bible cannot, but I show you that your Bible has something wrong. We didn't even go into what me and my guy was talking about earlier about Chronicles of how they say who caused David to give the census. One time is God, and another in Samuel it says that it's Satan. The Bible is incorrect. The Bible makes mistakes, but you can't admit it, so you have to try to justify it. And I'm just not here for your justifications. That's a waste of time, because you're not showing critical thinking. You're just showing your bias towards, I can only think with my predetermined landing point, and that's it. Right? That's it. And then gonna claim that I'm talking over you all the time. You're trying to talk over me too, and you won't answer. And yes, I'm gonna interrupt you when you don't answer the damn question. You're not gonna have me answering your questions, but then you want to jump around and not answer my questions. That shit don't work. So to hell with all that bullshit. And it's 5:38 my time, which means that my wife is probably already in the house, which means that I'm finna go spend time with my wife. Now, who is that guy? Back? if you want to come on another time that I'm here, I would not ban you from the show, but I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if you cannot answer my questions straightforward, the way that I answer your questions, then there's no reason for us to talk. Because I know a lot of other channels allow people to do all that rigmarole. I don't. I ain't got time for that. That's boring as hell, for one. So I'm not doing that. But you're more than welcome to come back. But when you do come back, understand how I function. You ask questions, I give an answer. I ask questions, I expect an answer, not your apologetic answers, especially when it's something as simple as the order of the shit being created. That doesn't require apologetics. That's how apologetics fail all the time. Right. So, and then it can't even admit that their God created out of nothingness. They're always trying to say, atheists say that that creation came out of nothingness. Your God is the one who created out of nothingness. And we know scientifically that nothingness exists. And we know that evolution is a fact of how we progress to where we are now. And to get into the minutia of, how is a seed created? You're talking about billions of years of evolution until you get to that point. Were there any seeds on the earth when the earth was molten lava and hot as fuck? No. When it didn't have the fullness of the atmosphere it has now? No, there were no seeds. But once enough hydrogen combined with nitrogen, and then other elements started to combine, and we get oceans and seas and rivers, and then life can then develop. It's a process over a long ass period of time. There was not just one day, bam, a seed popped up. That's how people think evolution works, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. The elements that make up a seed, the elements that makes up cats, as the example he was using, the elements that makes up humans, all those elements been around for a long ass time, but it took billions of years of different combinations and for atmospheric changes to occur before anything evolves from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. We used to think that life couldn't exist without sunlight. Then we go down to the deep parts of the sea and we see these hot vents that are coming out of the sea, and there's animals and shit all around it who have adapted to that lifestyle. But life was created in that space without light. Why? Because the right elements and nutrients were around. These hot vents provided warm enough water for these, and it's weird, there's some weird looking creatures, but for these tube worms and these shrimp-like creatures to evolve over millions and millions of years. So, and then they throw that bullshit about, have you tested it yourself? You weren't there when God created anything, but yet you believe this shit. You see, that double standard irritates the shit out of me. They want to say, well, have you studied it? Did you yourself process the Hadron Collider? Did you yourself view the Hubble telescope or the other one? Were you there when Jesus was walking? Take that double standard and you can shove that motherfucker. Because you're not going to give us one standard and then you get a different standard and then you think that you're right. No, I'm going to challenge you on that bullshit every time. Right? So, anyway. All right. Anyway, look, I appreciate y'all. Y'all be wanting me to do these lives, but I be getting fired up sometimes. So I'm getting ready to get off of here. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for being here. Everybody who supports the channel, thank you for supporting the channel. Everybody who's against the channel, I actually appreciate you guys for being here as well. Thank you for being here. Just know that if we're going to have a conversation, as the host, I'm going to cut you off if you just going 50 miles away from the subject matter or not answering questions. That's just how this shit going to work, My wife over here acting crazy. But anyway, so what's tomorrow? Friday? Yeah, I'll probably be on again tomorrow. It'll be a shorter show for sure. I'll be done. I can't be on past 3:15 at the latest tomorrow, but I got a meeting at 12 noon my time. So I don't know if I'm able to get on or how long. I probably won't be on. I just thought about it. I'm not going to be on tomorrow because I got other stuff to do after I finish that meeting. No, I might come on for a minute because I might need to test to see if I can make the platforms all work together. So I might be on for a minute tomorrow. Anyway, thank everybody for supporting the channel. Appreciate it. Continue to like, share, support the channel. Thank everybody for their gifts that they give, for their super chats and all those things, the stars. Please continue to share and like and support. And y'all have a great day. And always remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. Hold on. We ain't off yet, woman. Don't start talking.